When will we have access to all the records? The Freedom of Information Act was signed into law on September 6, 1966 by President Lyndon Johnson. It then went into effect the following year. By doing this, the American public was able to gain access to federal government records. In 1996, an amendment to the Freedom of Information Act was expanded to include electronic records, making it more easily to check public records. This was called the Electronic Freedom of Information Act Amendments of 1996. In Executive Order 13392, brought to us on December of 2005, it became required that federal agencies make their Freedom of Information Act programs centered toward by the people. This information is provided through the Federal Communications Commission. According to the Federal Communications Commission, certain records are exempt from disclosure under the Freedom of Information Act. These are national defense or foreign policy materials, internal, personal, or agency practices, information exempt for disclosure by another statute, trade secrets, interagency letters, files that would by any invasion of privacy, law enforcement records, information on financial institutions, and oil well data. The Federal Communications Commission will release exempt files under certain circumstances. In some situations, they would need written information from a person to release their information. On January 21, 2009, President Barack Obama signed Executive Order 13489 to state all information should be able to the public. He issued memos on government transparency and the Federal Freedom of Information Act. In the words of President Barack Obama, "For a long time now, there's been too much secrecy in this city. The old rules said that if there was a defensible argument for not disclosing something to the American people, then it should not be disclosed. That era is now over." Alberto Gonzales drafted Executive Order 13233 for President George W. Bush. He signed it on November 1, 2001, not longer after September 11 attacks on the United States. This was proposed in order to restrict public records of the former presidents. However, in the Executive Order 13489 that President Barack Obama signed in 2009, access to the presidential records were restored to the extent allowed in the Presidential Records Act. We should always be able to check public records for any information that we need. It is part of our constitutional rights as Americans. However, it seems that the public access to records has many exceptions to the law. When will the public records user and other common people have access to all information available, not just what they want us to see? For more articles and interesting information about public records and for useful tips and guidance to help you check public records, we recommend visiting public records check websites in order to get assistance and save time and money.